The river behind Mira's house always whispered. Some days, it spoke softly like her mother's voice, other days, it rushed and roared as if carrying all the world's secrets downstream. Mira liked to sit on the stone steps that led to the water, folding little squares of paper into birds. Each bird had a name, a wish, and a tiny heart drawn in pencil. One for happiness. One for courage. One for her mother. Her mother had passed away a year ago, leaving behind a trunk filled with books, letters, and half-written stories. Mira was only 11, but she loved to imagine that her mother's stories were alive, floating somewhere in the air, waiting for an ending. One rainy afternoon, as gray clouds crowded the sky, Mira folded a bird from a page torn out of her mother's notebook. She wrote a single line on its wing. "Fly back to her." Then she placed it gently on the river. For a moment, nothing happened. The paper darkened and curled in the rain, and just as she sighed, the bird trembled, lifted off the water, and fluttered away. Mira gasped. It wasn't a trick of the wind. It really flew. The next morning, when she opened her window, a small folded paper sat on her windowsill. She unfolded it with trembling fingers. The handwriting was delicate, curved, and unmistakable, her mother's. "My little bird, your stories will carry mine." Mira felt her heart beat faster. Could it be? Was her mother really sending her messages through the birds? Every evening after that, she made another paper bird. One to say thank you. One to ask questions. One just to tell her mother about her day. And every morning, a new note appeared, tiny sentences that seemed to answer her thoughts. The stories never end, Mira. Words can live longer than people. Finish what I couldn't. Mira began to open her mother's old trunk again. Inside were unfinished tales, about forests that whispered, clocks that remembered dreams, and stars that could be bottled in jars. Mira began writing their endings, each one inspired by her mother's words. The final story in the trunk was titled The River That Remembers. There were only 2 lines written. Once there was a river that carried voices. One day, it carried mine. Mira sat by the river for hours, thinking. Then she wrote her ending. And one day, it carried it back, through a little girl who listened. She folded the page into a bird, kissed it softly, and let it rest on the water. The bird floated, then rose, spinning upward into the sunset until it became a tiny glimmer in the sky. Mira smiled through her tears. Now she didn't need to send messages anymore. The river had carried her heart across, and brought her mother's stories home.